I told my parents I was gay. The silence at the table was louder than any words could have been. I can still see my mother's hand frozen halfway to her coffee cup, my father's fork suspended in midair, the steam rising from the roast chicken between us, like it was the only thing still moving in that room. That Sunday dinner changed everything, not because of what they said, but because of what they didn't say. Because sometimes the hardest truths aren't spoken, they're felt in the spaces between breaths, in the weight of eyes that won't meet yours, in the sound of silverware being carefully set down on porcelain. This is the story of how I finally said the words I'd been swallowing for years, and how that silence taught me more about my family and myself than any conversation ever could. I was 32 years old when I decided to tell them. 32. Not a confused teenager, not a college kid figuring things out. A grown man with a career, an apartment in the city, a life that looked complete from the outside. I worked as an architect for a firm downtown, designing office buildings and residential complexes, spending my days thinking about structure and foundation and how to make spaces feel right. The irony wasn't lost on me that I could design homes for other people, but couldn't figure out how to be honest in my own family's house. I'd been living in Chicago for almost 10 years by then, far enough from my hometown in Wisconsin that I could breathe, close enough that I was expected at Sunday dinners twice a month. My parents still lived in the same house where I grew up, a brick colonial with a big backyard and a kitchen that always smelled like something was baking. My mother taught third grade at the elementary school I'd attended as a kid. My father managed a hardware store he'd worked at for 35 years. They were good people, solid people, the kind who went to church every Sunday morning, who knew all their neighbors' names, who believed in hard work and family and doing the right thing. I'd always known I was different, even as a kid, but I'd gotten very good at not knowing, at pushing it down, at explaining it away, at building a version of myself that fit into their world. I dated girls in high school. I had a girlfriend in college, Sarah, who I almost convinced myself I could marry. We broke up after graduation, and I told everyone it was because of the distance, because she got a job in Boston, and I was staying in Chicago. That was easier than admitting I felt relieved. For years after that, I just focused on work. I told my mother I was too busy building my career to think about relationships. She'd sigh and say I was going to end up alone if I wasn't careful, that I needed to find a nice girl and settle down before it was too late. My father would just grunt and change the subject, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. They wanted grandchildren. They wanted the life they understood, and I wanted to give it to them. I really did. But wanting something and being able to deliver it are two very different things. His name was Marcus. He was a contractor I worked with on a residential project in Lincoln Park, one of those old brownstones being converted into luxury condos. I was 30 years old when we met, and he was 38. He had his own construction company, small but respected, the kind of guy who showed up on site every day in work boots and jeans with a tool belt slung around his hips. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with broad shoulders and forearms that showed the years of physical labor. His hair was starting to go gray at the temples. He had this way of listening when you talked, really listening. His dark eyes focused on you like what you were saying actually mattered. We started working together because the project was complicated. Lots of structural issues that needed an architect and a contractor to solve together. We'd meet on site early in the morning before the crews arrived, going over plans, arguing about load-bearing walls and ceiling heights. He'd point at my drawings and say things like, "This looks good on paper, but in real life, you're going to have a problem here." And he'd be right. He had this practical knowledge that came from actually building things, from understanding how materials behaved, how spaces felt when you were standing in them instead of just looking at blueprints. I respected that. I respected him. We started getting coffee after those morning meetings, then lunch, then drinks after work when a particularly difficult problem got solved. He talked about his divorce, how his ex-wife had left him 5 years earlier because he worked too much, because he didn't know how to be present even when he was home. He talked about his daughter, who was 15 and lived with her mother in the suburbs, how he saw her every other weekend and never felt like it was enough time. He was honest in a way that made me want to be honest too, but I wasn't. I kept up the version of myself I'd been performing for years. I mentioned dating, kept it vague, let him assume whatever he wanted to assume, except I started noticing things. The way my chest felt tight when he'd lean over a set of plans and I could smell sawdust and coffee on him. The way I'd find myself watching his hands when he gestured, the way he'd run his fingers through his hair when he was thinking, the way I felt disappointed on days when he couldn't meet for coffee. I told myself it was just friendship, that I admired him professionally, that this was normal. But I'd wake up at 3 in the morning sometimes, staring at my ceiling, knowing I was lying to myself, knowing that what I felt when I was around Marcus was something I'd never felt with Sarah, or any of the women I'd dated, something I'd spent my whole life trying not to feel. The project took 8 months. Toward the end, we were meeting almost every day, sometimes multiple times. The client was demanding, the timeline was tight, and we'd developed this rhythm where we could almost finish each other's sentences when it came to solving problems. One Friday evening in late October, we were the last ones on site. The crews had left, the sun was setting, and we were standing in what would eventually be someone's living room, looking at an issue with the fireplace installation. Marcus was frustrated. The stone veneer wasn't sitting right, and he was talking about having to tear it out and start over, about how it was going to cost time and money. I was standing next to him, both of us staring at this half-finished fireplace, and he just stopped talking mid-sentence. The silence stretched out. Then he said very quietly, "Can I ask you something?" I felt my stomach drop. I knew somehow what was coming. "Sure," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't look at me. He kept his eyes on the fireplace. "Are you seeing anyone?" It was such a simple question, such a normal question, but the way he asked it, the weight behind it, made it feel like something else entirely. "No," I said, "I'm not." Another silence. Then he said, "I need to tell you something, and I don't know how to say it without it being weird." My heart was hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. "Okay," I managed. He turned to look at me then. His expression was serious, almost pained. "I think about you all the time," he said. "And I don't mean just about work. I mean I think about you when I'm home, when I'm with my daughter, when I'm supposed to be thinking about anything else. And I don't know what to do with that." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring at him. And for the first time in my life, I didn't try to rationalize it away or pretend I didn't understand. "I think about you too," I said. The words came out barely above a whisper, but they came out. And once they were out, I couldn't take them back. I didn't want to take them back. He took a step closer. We were standing in this empty room, in this building that was half finished, surrounded by dust and tools and the smell of fresh paint. And he reached out and touched my face, just his hand against my cheek, rough and warm and real. "Is this okay?" he asked. I nodded. I couldn't speak. Then he kissed me. It was gentle at first, tentative, like he was giving me a chance to pull away. But I didn't pull away. I leaned into it. I felt something in my chest crack open, something I'd been holding closed for 30 years. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. He rested his forehead against mine. "I've never," I started, then stopped. I've never with anyone. With a man." He pulled back enough to look at me. "Never?" "Never," I confirmed. He studied my face for a long moment. Then he said, "We don't have to do anything you're not ready for. We can just, I don't know, figure this out." And that's what we did. For the next 2 years, we figured it out. Slowly, carefully, in secret. We'd meet at his place or mine, never in public where someone might see us and ask questions. We'd have dinner together, watch movies, talk about everything and nothing. He was patient with me, with all my fear and confusion and internalized shame. He never pushed. He just existed in my life like this quiet constant, this person who saw me and didn't look away. But I was still lying to everyone else, to my parents, to my coworkers, to my old friends from high school who'd ask if I was dating anyone. I'd make vague comments about being busy, about not having found the right person yet. And every time I lied, I felt the distance between who I was and who I was pretending to be grow a little wider. The crisis came gradually, then all at once. It started with small things. My mother calling to tell me she'd met a lovely young woman at church, a teacher like her, who was single and around my age. Would I like her number? Me making excuses, feeling sick to my stomach. My father mentioning over dinner that his friend's son had just gotten married. Had I seen the photos on Facebook? When was I going to give them something to celebrate? Me changing the subject. feeling the walls close in. Then my mother started getting more direct. She'd call and ask point blank why I never brought anyone to family dinners. She'd say she was worried about me, that it wasn't natural for a man my age to be alone all the time. She'd ask if something was wrong, if I needed to talk to someone, maybe a therapist. The concern in her voice made everything worse, because she wasn't being cruel. She was being a mother who loved her son and couldn't understand why he seemed so isolated, so closed off. I started having panic attacks. I'd wake up at night unable to breathe, feeling like I was drowning in my own skin. I'd sit in my car after work, hands shaking, trying to figure out how I was going to keep doing this. Marcus would hold me and tell me I didn't have to keep doing this, that I could just tell them, that it would be hard, but it would be better than living like this. But I couldn't imagine it. I couldn't imagine sitting across from my parents and saying the words. I couldn't imagine watching their faces change, watching them try to reconcile the son they thought they knew with this truth they'd never expected. I couldn't imagine my mother crying, my father's disappointment, the conversations they'd have with their friends at church, the shame they'd feel, the questions they'd have to answer. Then Marcus's daughter found out about us. She came over to his place unexpectedly one Saturday afternoon, and we were on the couch, just sitting close, his arm around me. She stopped in the doorway and stared. Marcus stood up immediately, started to explain, but she held up her hand. "Dad," she said, "it's okay. I mean, I'm surprised, but it's okay." She looked at me, then back at him. "Are you happy?" He nodded. "Yeah, I am." She smiled, this small, sad smile. "Then I'm happy for you." She stayed for dinner. We ordered pizza and she asked me questions about my work, about how we met, treating the whole thing like it was the most normal thing in the world, and watching her accept it so easily, watching her hug her father and tell him she loved him before she left. Something broke in me. Because if this 15-year-old girl could handle the truth, why was I so terrified of my own parents knowing? That night, after she left, I told Marcus I was going to do it. I was going to tell them. He asked if I was sure, if I was ready. I said I didn't know if I'd ever be ready, but I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep lying, not to them and not to myself. I called my mother on Monday and asked if I could come for dinner on Sunday. She sounded delighted. She said she'd make my favorite roast chicken with potatoes and green beans. She asked if I was bringing anyone. I said no, just me. The week leading up to that Sunday was the longest week of my life. I couldn't focus at work. I couldn't sleep. I kept rehearsing what I was going to say, trying to find the right words, the right way to explain. But there was no right way. There was just the truth, and the truth was terrifying. Marcus called me every night. He'd ask how I was doing, if I wanted him to come with me. I said no. This was something I needed to do alone. But knowing he was there, knowing he'd be waiting when it was over, made it feel possible. Sunday came. I drove to my parents' house. The same route I'd driven 1,000 times, past the same landmarks, the same streets I'd grown up on. It was a beautiful day, early March, the kind of day where you can just start to feel spring in the air. The trees were beginning to bud. The sky was that particular shade of blue that makes everything feel hopeful. I pulled into their driveway and sat in my car for 10 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. My mother opened the door before I could knock. She hugged me, said I looked thin, asked if I was eating enough. My father was in the living room watching a basketball game. He stood up when I came in, shook my hand, asked about work. Everything was normal. Everything was exactly like it always was. We sat down for dinner at 1 o'clock, the three of us around the same table where I'd eaten thousands of meals. My mother had set it nicely. The good plates, cloth napkins. The chicken was perfect, golden and crispy. The potatoes were the way I liked them, roasted with rosemary. She'd even made an apple pie for dessert. We talked about safe things. My mother's students, my father's store, the neighbor's new dog. I pushed food around my plate, barely tasting anything. My mother noticed. "Are you feeling okay?" she asked. "You've hardly eaten anything." This was it. This was the moment. I set down my fork. My hands were shaking. "I need to tell you something," I said. The tone of my voice made them both stop. My mother put down her coffee cup. My father looked up from his plate. "What is it?" my mother asked. Her face was already worried. I took a breath, then another. Then I said it. "I'm gay." The words hung in the air. 3 syllables, 2 words. 32 years of hiding ended in a single sentence. My mother's hand froze halfway back to her coffee cup. My father's fork stopped moving. The silence was immediate and total. Not the comfortable silence of a family meal, but something else. Something heavy and suffocating. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. I could hear my own heartbeat. I could hear the sound of my mother's breath catching. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The steam kept rising from the chicken. A car drove past outside. The refrigerator hummed, and they just stared at me, their faces blank, like I'd spoken in a language they didn't understand. I've known for a long time, I continued, my voice shaking. I tried not to be. I tried to be what you wanted, but I can't anymore. I can't keep lying to you, and I can't keep lying to myself. More silence. My mother's eyes were filling with tears. My father's face had gone pale. Say something, I whispered. Please. My mother opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. How long? She finally managed. Have you known? Always, I said. I think I've always known. She shook her head slowly, like she was trying to clear it. But you dated girls. You had a girlfriend in college. I know, I said. I was trying to be normal. I was trying to be what you wanted me to be. My father stood up abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. He walked to the window, stood there with his back to us, hands in his pockets. My mother was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. Is there? She started, then stopped. Is there someone? I nodded. His name is Marcus. We've been together for 2 years. She made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. 2 years. You've been lying to us for 2 years. I've been lying to you for 32 years, I said. I just didn't know how to tell you. My father turned around. His face was hard, closed off. This isn't how we raised you, he said. His voice was quiet but firm. We raised you with values, with faith. You raised me to be honest, I said. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be honest with you. Honest, he repeated. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think this is honest? You think this is what God wants? I don't know what God wants, I said. But I know I can't keep hating myself. I know I can't keep pretending to be someone I'm not. My mother was shaking her head. This is just a phase, she said. You're confused. Maybe you haven't met the right woman yet. Maybe if you tried harder, if you prayed more. Mom, I interrupted. This isn't a phase. This isn't confusion. This is who I am. The silence came back, heavier than before. My father sat back down. He picked up his fork, then set it down again. He couldn't look at me. My mother wiped her eyes with her napkin. I need time, she said finally. I need to process this. Okay, I said. Take all the time you need. But my father shook his head. I don't know if I can accept this, he said. I don't know if this is something I can accept. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd known it was a possibility, but hearing him say it out loud made it real. I'm still your son, I said. My voice cracked. I'm still the same person I was before I told you. No, he said. You're not. And that was it. That was the moment I understood that telling the truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it just shows you who's willing to stay and who's going to walk away. The weeks after that dinner were the hardest of my life. My mother called a few times, awkward conversations where she'd ask about work and the weather and carefully avoid mentioning anything real. My father didn't call at all. I'd text him occasionally, just to let him know I was thinking about him, but he rarely responded. When he did, it was one word answers. Fine. Busy. Okay. I stopped going to Sunday dinners. My mother said it was probably for the best, that my father needed space, that maybe in time things would get better. But I could hear the doubt in her voice. Marcus held me through it all. On the nights when I couldn't sleep, when I'd wake up crying, when I'd wonder if I'd made a terrible mistake, he was there. He'd remind me that I'd done the brave thing, the honest thing, that my parents' reaction was about them, not about me, that I couldn't control how they felt, only how I responded. His daughter started coming around more often. She'd show up with takeout and stay for dinner, treating me like I was just another part of her father's life, which I guess I was. She told me once that her mom had always known her dad was different, even when they were married. That she'd suspected something, but he'd never admitted it, even to himself. That the divorce had been hard but necessary. That she was glad he was finally being honest. I started seeing a therapist, a woman in her 50s who specialized in LGBTQ issues, who'd heard versions of my story 100 times before. She helped me understand that coming out isn't a single moment, it's a process. That grief is part of it, grieving the relationship with your parents that you thought you had, grieving the version of yourself you'd been performing for so long. She helped me see that I'd been carrying shame that wasn't mine to carry, that I'd internalized messages from my childhood, from my church, from my community, and that unlearning those messages would take time. I started telling other people. My boss, who surprised me by being completely supportive. A few close friends, who said they'd wondered but hadn't wanted to ask. My college roommate, who told me he'd always known, that it had been obvious to everyone but me. Each time I said the words, they got a little easier. Each time someone responded with acceptance, the weight got a little lighter. But my parents' silence stayed heavy. 3 months after that Sunday dinner, my mother called. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was at Marcus's place making dinner. When I saw her name on my phone, I felt my chest tighten. I stepped out onto the balcony to take the call. "Hi, Mom," I said. "Hi, honey." Her voice was soft, tentative. "How are you?" "I'm okay," I said. "How are you?" "I've been thinking a lot," she said. "About what you told us. About everything." I waited. "I talked to Pastor Mike," she continued. "I told him what was going on, and he said something that surprised me. He said that God's love is bigger than our understanding, that Jesus spent his time with people who were rejected by society, and that maybe we're the ones who need to change, not you." I felt tears start to form. "He said that?" "He did. And your father was there when he said it. And I think maybe it made him think." She paused. "We want you to come to dinner this Sunday. Both of you and Marcus, if he's willing." I couldn't speak. I just stood there, gripping the phone, trying to process what she'd just said. "I can't promise your father will be warm," she continued. "I can't promise this will be easy, but I want to try. I want to know this person who makes you happy. I want to understand your life." "Mom," I managed. "Thank you. I love you," she said. "I've always loved you. And I'm sorry it took me so long to say that after you told us. I'm sorry for the silence." "It's okay," I said. "It's okay." But it wasn't really okay. Not yet. It would take time. But it was a beginning. That Sunday, Marcus and I drove to my parents' house together. He was nervous, which was strange because I'd never seen him nervous before. He kept adjusting his collar, checking his reflection in the car window. I held his hand as we walked up to the door. My mother answered. She looked older than I remembered, more tired, but she smiled when she saw us. "Come in," she said. She hugged me, then turned to Marcus. "You must be Marcus." "Yes, ma'am," he said. He shook her hand. "Thank you for having me." My father was in the living room. He stood when we came in, but he didn't move toward us. He just stood there, looking at Marcus, then at me, then back at Marcus. "Dad," I said, "this is Marcus." Marcus extended his hand. For a long moment, my father just looked at it. Then slowly, he reached out and shook it. "Nice to meet you," he said. His voice was stiff, formal, but he said it. Dinner was awkward. My mother tried to fill the silences with questions about Marcus's work, about his daughter, about anything safe. Marcus answered politely, respectfully. My father ate in silence, occasionally glancing up at us, his expression unreadable. But toward the end of the meal, something shifted. Marcus was talking about a project he was working on, restoring an old church that had been damaged in a fire. He was explaining the challenges of matching the original craftsmanship, of finding materials that would honor the building's history. And my father leaned forward. "What kind of wood are you using for the pews?" he asked. It was the first question he'd asked all evening. Marcus looked surprised but answered. They started talking about different types of wood, about grain patterns and durability. My father knew a lot about wood from his years at the hardware store. Marcus knew about it from his years in construction. And for a few minutes, they were just two men talking about something they both understood. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it was something. It was a crack in the wall. As we were leaving, my mother hugged me again. "Come back next Sunday," she whispered. "Keep coming back." In the car, Marcus was quiet. "That was hard," he said finally. "Yeah," I agreed. "But they showed up. They tried. That's more than I thought I'd get." He reached over and took my hand. "Your dad asked me about Wood," he said. He was smiling. "I know," I said. I was smiling too. It's been a year since that first dinner with Marcus. We still go to my parents' house twice a month. My father still doesn't say much, but he's there. He asks Marcus about his projects. He told me last month that he's proud of the work I'm doing, that the building I designed downtown looks good. It's not everything I want, but it's something. My mother calls me more now. She asks about Marcus, about his daughter, about our lives. She sent me a book about parents of LGBTQ children, told me she's been reading it, trying to understand. She said she wishes she'd known sooner, that she wishes I hadn't had to carry this alone for so long. I told her I wish I'd told her sooner too, but that I wasn't ready, that I had to be ready. Some of my extended family knows now. Some of them are supportive, some of them aren't. I've learned that I can't control how people react. I can only control whether I'm living honestly, and I am. For the first time in my life, I'm living honestly. Marcus and I are talking about moving in together. His daughter graduates high school next year, and she's already talking about coming to visit us in the city, about how she wants to study architecture like I did. The silence at that Sunday dinner table was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. But it wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of my parents trying to understand, the beginning of me learning to live without shame, the beginning of a life that's actually mine. I still think about that moment sometimes. My mother's hand frozen in mid-air, my father's fork suspended above his plate. I think about how terrified I was, how certain I was that I'd lose them forever. And I almost did, but I didn't. Not completely. Because the truth is, coming out isn't just about telling people you're gay. It's about claiming your right to exist as you are. It's about deciding that authenticity matters more than comfort. It's about understanding that you can't live your whole life trying to be what other people need you to be. At some point, you have to choose yourself. And that choice is terrifying. But it's also the only choice that leads to freedom. My truth set me free. Not immediately, not easily, but eventually. And if you're sitting there right now, knowing this feeling, knowing what it's like to carry a secret that's eating you alive, I want you to know you're not alone. If this story touched you, leave a like. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like mine. And if you want, tell me in the comments where you're listening from, or just write, "My truth set me free," because you're not alone. And authenticity, no matter how hard it is to get there, is always worth it.